Welcome back to Unit 4 of Week 4. The topic for this unit is third-party processes. In this unit, I shall take you through third-party order fulfillment and third-party logistic processes within SAP Business by Design. The third-party order processing scenario enables companies to sell products that will be shipped directly from the supplier to the customer without the need to carry the product in stock. The company, on receipt of the sales order, initiates a purchase with its vendor, and instead of getting the goods shipped into the company's own warehouse, it is shipped directly to the customer. One example might be with the various shopping portals that you see nowadays. Many a times, these shopping portals have a tie-up with multiple smaller suppliers. In this case, you place your order on the online shopping portal and make your payment also to them, but the goods are shipped to you directly by the supplier. SAP Business by Design supports all required process steps to execute and monitor the third-party processing scenario. The process mainly consists of three parts: order, procure, and settle. Order part deals with the sales side, that is, creation of opportunity, quotes, and the sales order. Note that the creation of opportunity and quotes is just optional. The procure part deals with the purchasing side, that is the purchase order and the inbound notification. The settle part deals with the settlement of the customer and supplier invoices via financials. Another point to note, and you should also see this in the system, is that even though the physical shipment happens only from the vendor or the supplier to the customer, still inbound and outbound documents would also be created in the company's Business by Design system to maintain transparency in the material and the financial postings. Now let's take a look at the specific process steps before we start with the demo. Creation of the sales order for third-party order fulfillment triggers automatic creation of purchase request on the purchasing side, which is carried on further with the purchase order processing. For purchasing, there are different options possible. If you have a valid external source of supply, that is a contract or a list price with the supplier for the product that is being sold, then this document would also be listed as a suitable source of supply along with the others in the sales order, and this can be chosen there to signify that this product has to be procured externally. If it is known that the product will always be sourced from a vendor, then in this case, the master data for the product can be configured accordingly. Appropriate external sources of supply, just that we discussed just now, that is contracts and purchase list prices, can be created with the suppliers, and this will also ensure that the product is externally sourced in the sales order. In case there is no external source of supply, but you still want the procurement to be done via third-party vendor, then you can manually choose the supplier in the sales order for the external fulfillment. We shall also discuss each of these options in the demo. Once the goods are shipped from the vendor's location, a third-party delivery notification can be created in the system, which in turn triggers creation and release of the inbound and outbound deliveries. The deliveries creation and release happens in the background and is essentially a hidden step for the end user. Though by default the setup is to release the outbound delivery automatically, it is possible to configure it for the manual release during business configuration. Note that this option is available only for outbound delivery and not for the inbound delivery. After the release of deliveries, the customer and supplier invoice documents can be created and are sent to Fin for final settlement. Let's now take a look at a short demo in the system. I have logged in as an administrative user so as to give you an entire overview of the process. What I would like to show you is two materials first. The material 1, which has been set up for third-party procurement. And in this material, if you see, the logistics, planning, and availability confirmation tabs. In short, all the tabs which are relating to the supply chain are not maintained, signifying that it can only be sold and purchased. Of course, valuation, taxes, all these are anyways needed to be maintained. Let's take a look at the other product which we will be using for the third-party order scenario, and that is the P100205. If you see here, the logistics, planning, availability confirmation, all the tabs are maintained, signifying that the product is also planned within the company, but it can also be externally procured. And how can it be procured? Let us just see. Let's move on quickly now to the creation of the sales order. Where is the sales order? Let me find it. Yes. Okay, I'll create a new sales order and we create it with an account. Quickly, we shall add the two products that we just discussed. We have the product here. 202 is what I said. Yes. A moment to look at this product in detail in the sales order will show that the fulfillment type is external. Note the fulfillment type here. It's very important that the external fulfillment type is selected and hence the supplier information is also filled in automatically. This information is what will come when you have the contracts and list prices maintained automatically. If you see the source of supply for this, there is only one, and that is external, because internally it is not planned and fulfilled. Let's add the other product as well. We can add 205, okay. And if you see for this product, it will by default be chosen as internal fulfillment but can be changed to external. And since there is an external source of supply available for it, it has already got defaulted to the supplier details of that particular source of supply. If we check it here, you will find both the internal as well as the external sources of supply listed. What can also be noted here is that you can also go ahead and change this particular supplier to whichever supplier that you want, and that is the manual option that I was talking about during the presentation. Now let's just go ahead and submit the sales order. Let's release the order. Okay, it is saving. 3072 is the order created. Taking a look at it in outbound logistics control, there is no part of the supply chain here because, or there is not much part, let me put it that way, because there is not much planning required in the system to be done. So if you see in the orders created today, this is what we created and both of them have got released. Next step for us is to look at the purchase order which was created based on the purchase request for this. So let's see all the purchase orders created and let me just execute the query and it should show. Yeah, so I have both the purchase orders created here. I hope, yes. Sorry about the both the part. It's one purchase order since it's one supplier. If you had two different suppliers, then it would have created two different purchase orders. So we have the 709 sales order purchase order created with both the products included in it, and it has already been sent. Let's move to the interesting part of third-party order fulfillment, which is the dedicated work center that it has. Here you can look at all the third-party purchase orders, the delivery notifications, inbound deliveries and the outbound deliveries available for the third party. Since the purchase order was created now, we can move ahead and create the third inbound delivery notification for it. Let me quickly find the purchase order that we created today. I think it is taking some time in the system to come back. Yeah, this is the one. And then just create the new third-party delivery notification for it. Let's say Depop that we created for a demo today. And take a look at the line items. You see both the items that we created today added in the sales order have been included here. I will need to do a check consistency to see that everything is consistent with the sales order, with this particular inbound delivery notification, and then do a release. But from the end user perspective, the process in delivery processing or in fact supply chain can be set to stop here. After this is only the invoicing process. So what happens in the background, and this is all what I also mentioned in the presentation, is that it has also created an inbound and outbound delivery automatically in the system. If you see, both the inbound and outbound delivery have been released. Like I said, there is a setting to actually control the outbound delivery to release it manually, and that is available in the business configuration, and I had opened it for you. Let me quickly find out where it is. Yes, yeah. So in the business configuration, in the questions section, under manufacturing, warehousing and logistics, outbound logistics, you have the questions for outbound delivery. And here you have a specific question asking you whether you would like to automatically release the outbound delivery. Here you can choose it to either get released automatically or not. If this option is not selected, the outbound delivery would not be released, holding back the customer invoicing processing. So only when you wish, maybe after an acknowledgement from your customer, you could go ahead and release the outbound delivery and then start with the customer invoicing process. That's it with the third-party order fulfillment scenario. After the deliveries are created in the system, the normal invoicing has to be done, and we shall not take a look at it right now because of lack of time. Let's go back to our slides, to our presentation, and move on to the next process. The third-party logistics, also known as 3PL, deals with the scenario when your company has outsourced its warehousing activities to an external vendor or warehouse provider. Excuse me. In case of a non-3PL site, the company is in control for the entire layout, the warehousing, as well as the logistics activities within its site. Whereas in the 3PL scenario, though the site and the inventory in the site is owned by the company itself, the warehousing and logistics functionality is owned and carried out by the external 3PL provider. With the 3PL functionality in Business by Design, it's possible to connect the system to an external system of the 3PL provider. Setup-wise, on the Business by Design site, a 3PL site must be marked as an externally managed warehouse. This is a very specific setting and has to be done at the time of creation itself. Because once inventory is booked on a site, it cannot be changed to an externally managed site. The third-party logistics provider is also modeled as a business partner and with a role warehouse provider in the system. A communication arrangement must be set up which will help in the exchange of messages electronically between the Business by Design system and the 3PL provider system. These are B2B messages, that is business-to-business interfaces following the UN or EDIFACT standard. Note that in the absence of or failure of automatic communication, maybe due to some unforeseen circumstances, systems going down, a manual option is available to create the inbound and outbound delivery. At the third-party logistics provider side, the mapping of the interfaces used for the message communication must be taken care of by the warehouse provider. Let's look at it from the execution perspective. Business by Design keeps the full sales, purchasing, and fulfillment process with it, including the invoicing, whereas the warehouse execution part and also the transportation is outsourced. That is, sales order, purchase order, customer invoicing, supplier invoicing, all these are created in the Business by Design system. However, no inbound or outbound task can be executed in the system, and hence there is no control on execution. The 3PL warehouse provider has to take the responsibility for all the topics concerning the execution processes like shipping, receiving, the physical inventory management, as well as quality control. One important aspect to note is that after the physical execution happens at the 3PL side, the final inbound and outbound delivery documents are created in the Business by Design system based on the confirmation communication from the 3PL. This is so that we update the correct inventory levels and carry on with invoicing and financials. The third-party logistics scenario supports various processes as is shown on the slide. You have the inbound side, the outbound side, even the inventory changes that we spoke about earlier. You have seen each of these processes in the earlier units or weeks. It is important to note here that the steps in each of these processes always remains the same. The only point is that you would now be working with a 3PL site. For example, in the inbound processing, the purchase order created would be having the ship to location as a 3PL site instead of any other site, but the rest of the steps remain the same as in a procure to pay. So let's look at a third-party scenario with the help of sell from stock. A sales order is created in the system with the ship from location as the 3PL site. After ATP check and release from customer demand, this creates an outbound delivery proposal. The outbound delivery proposal release creates a 3PL request which can be configured to send a message to the 3PL provider telling him that now you will have a sales order which needs to be shipped out. The focus and execution now shifts to the third-party provider side, and these steps are carried out outside the Business by Design system because it's not a part of our system. After the actual physical execution of the shipment, and the goods is completed at the warehouse, a message communication back to the Business Bydesign system creates the outbound delivery document. The release of this delivery document updates the inventory and also initiates the customer invoicing process. Shall we look at a quick demo in the system? Okay. So before we start with the sales order processing, I like to show you the master data that is set up for this. Like I said, first let me close these materials. I think they will avoid some confusion, and yeah. So as I said, the location of the site has to be marked as an externally managed warehouse location, and this is imperative to be done. A communication arrangement has to be set up in between the warehouse provider and the system. So in this case, we have the business partner S100950 who serves as our warehouse provider. The next thing I also want to show is how the business partner itself is set up, and it has the role warehouse provider, and this is also necessary to be done. Yeah, sorry. Okay. One more thing that has to be taken care of is about the document numbering. Since the outbound and inbound delivery documents are created from outside the system, a numbering pattern has to be maintained for them in the business configuration fine-tuning section. You will find it easily if you just mention document numbering in the business configuration. Now let's start with the sales order process and see a sales process for the third-party logistics. I will quickly create a sales order. Yes. Sales order, and let's add an item which can be sourced from a 3PL site and row. Yes, let me add some quantity also for the item. Okay, it is showing me an ATP red because it's now sourced from Almica, which is P1100. Let's source it from our third party managed warehouse, which is P1124. What you need to note is the fulfillment type is still internal, and it again signifies the point that this is a site owned by the company, only that it is managed by a third party warehouse provider, hence the fulfillment type has to be internal. Now if you check the ATP, it is green because at this particular 3PL site this material is available. I will quickly go ahead and release this sales order. Okay, so 3073 is the sales order. Let's also take a look at it in the customer demand and release it from there. Fine, and release it. Okay, now once it has released, let's move on to the outbound logistics processing. In outbound logistics processing, this is the common mistake that I did earlier as well. What we have to do is now move to the third-party logistics work center. Third-party logistics is even more full-fledged work center than third-party order fulfillment. You can see the inbound, the outbound processing, the inventory management steps, the outbound delivery runs, everything here. So the delivery proposal that we created just now will not show up in the outbound logistics work center, the normal one, but it will show up here. And let's take a look at it. Has it reached here? Oh yeah, and there we find it. Now let's create a 3PL request. So this 3PL request would now send an XML communication to the third party warehouse provider asking him to ship out the goods. What I have done is I have simulated a third party tool which can be used as a confirmation from the third party logistics provider. So we have, let's find out the 3PL request ID quickly for this particular request that was created. It is 1390, and using that I will create a confirmation in the system. So give me 1 minute. This is the tool, and here, so you can use any such tool. Your third party logistics provider might be having different kinds of tools and settings. This is just a demo tool to help understand how it works. So once I execute this, it has been accepted. And let's see what has happened in the system. Third party logistics, and now I go to the outbound deliveries and not released outbound deliveries. Okay, so this is the one I created just now, and the delivery ID has been created. If you note now, the delivery did not get released automatically. This is because there is also a 3PL process settings that you can do in the system which can signify whether a 3PL request can be automatically released, an outbound delivery can be manually or automatically released, and other stuff which can be configured here. So this is the other option which is available to you in order to control the system in the third-party logistics scenario. With that, we come to the end of a demo for the third-party logistics scenario. Let's now take a quick look at the summary. What we saw in this unit was how to process an end-to-end third-party order processing scenario, how to process an end-to-end third-party logistics scenario. Specifically, we took a look at the sales scenario. We saw the different capabilities for 3PL in SAP Business by Design. That brings us to the end of this Unit 4. I shall see you in Unit 5.